Kongversation.
It was Aardwolf. Aardwolf was the trigger word, the Tom Holland implanted in the employees of the London Internet Exchange. Now they're all under my control!
Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm not Hyle Russell. And I'm Freezer. I wanted to see how long I could keep that going.
I was prepared to sit here in silence for 2 to 3 hours because I commit to the bit.
That would make up 2 to 3 hours of this 4-hour podcast as nice.
If I have any attributes, positive or
And you
negative,
don't, but I appreciate the positivity.
I do commit to the bit. Hence, DK Vine being in its 25th year. I just don't know when to quit. And part of my not quitting, part of my stubborn refusal to say when, is my love for the character that we are going to be discussing on this episode of The Kongversation. Is not a character who gets a lot of love in the greater gaming world. You're not going to see loving tributes to this fella on gaming channels, websites. There's never going to be a Hyrule Historia published in his honor. But he means a lot to us.
Mr. Pants only got 4 books. There's It's Go Time, Slacks Camera Action, Trick or Feat, or Camping Catastrophe. And this lovable feline that you always get every time you Google Mr. Pants is clearly what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's the same confounding confusion I have whenever I see the character Bluey and little kids going on and on about how much they love Bluey. And I'm like, yeah, I like Bluey too. Turns out they're not talking about the walrus from Diddy Kong Racing.
My brother was saying that he was watching Bluey, and it took us a long time to realize he meant some 1970s detective show from Australia that I'd never heard of. He was just fucking with us for months. So that's the original Bluey.
Yeah, Australians apparently just have like 10 names they just recycle throughout the ages.
Yeah, like Bear.
Yeah. So, it's Mr. Pants. Obviously I was going to say classic Game Boy Advance game. It's not really considered classic outside of our circles. I was going to say beloved, but same.
In outside of our squares and rectangles, actually.
Yes. It's a Game Boy Advance game, and it turned 20 years old in December of this year, which we are still in. We are recording this on December 28th. This episode will go live December 30th. So, I mean, I know it's December 29th for you, Freezer, being that you are in Australia, but...
Yeah, I'm a bigger fan, but how do you know when it came out? And there's no record of this game, and I feel like you just know when it came out because you were actually there.
We were actually there, yes. So...
Why aren't you editing Wikipedia?
We were doggedly pursuing the release of this game because we at DK Vine in 2004 were very, very excited for it. But it had a bit of a nebulous release in that it sort of
release.
Well, it had about, as I like to jokingly say, had about 12 copies released worldwide. It's a little bit more than that. It had more than 12 copies, as Paul Makachek confirmed during the interview here on The Kongversation several months back. But it didn't release much. It was basically a game that was published internationally by THQ just as a thank you, or a condition, rather, because they wanted to publish the Banjo-Kazooie games on the GBA. Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge and Banjo Pilot. Rare also wanted them to publish Saberwulf for the Game Boy Advance and It's Mr. Pants. They didn't really care about the latter two, but they, half-heartedly released Saberwulf, gave it a little bit of promotion, and then for It's Mr. Pants, they basically just, I don't know, dumped the crates into the ocean and they eventually washed ashore haphazardly. So we have the release date at DK Vine as December 7th because I believe that is just when it was first found by our network in a store. And I'm not sure who found it first, but that was our first definitive, tangible proof it was released. So December 2024, December 7th is the earliest we can confirm. But yeah, it just kind of showed up. And even then, chances of actually finding it at a retailer were slim. You mostly had to order it online from the retailers who did have it. We found it all the same, and a very, 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 very small but dedicated audience for it has been cultivated over the last 2 decades. And despite that, I know this episode of The Kongversation is not going to be very popular. I know that this will probably be one of our least listened to episodes of the entire year.
You know you're allowed to invite me on episodes people listen to, right? I'm not scared of people listening to me.
The problem is your areas of expertise are generally in the most obscure corners.
When Banjo-Pilot gets an episode, everyone's going to listen to that. That was the last Banjo game that people care about, right?
It's debatable whether people cared about that one, but
they did. It had that really weird Klungo model in the instruction manual.
Yes, it had the weird Klungo model.
It had the giant fries at Witchy World.
Yes.
This is important lore.
It had the inexplicable, orcas, killer whales in Cauldron Keep, which everybody remembers that. Espresso was there, yeah. We'll talk about Banjo-Pilot in season 13. Lucky season 13 of The Kongversation. But first, we must celebrate It's Mr. Pants on the occasion of its vague 20th anniversary. Now, we already did a spotlight for this game way back in 2015 here on The Kongversation. And I was debating for months now how we were going to honor It's Mr. Pants' 20th anniversary, because I wanted to do it, because we did a spotlight for Saberwulf during its 20th month earlier this year. And I was like, we have to do It's Mr. Pants. I love It's Mr. Pants. But I figured that one of our anniversary retrospectives, 20 years of It's Mr. Pants, or a Why It's Mr. Pants Still Matters episode, wouldn't be taken seriously, because the fact of the matter is, to the general gaming populace, It's Mr. Pants has never mattered. And that hurts, but it's true.
There are some people, but this game is their childhood, let's face it.
It does have its audience. The problem is, I feel like most of its audience gets pulled into our network, and they either become staffers or frequent conversation co-hosts. This is your second episode co-hosting, Freezer.
Yeah. I spoke to a normal person who played this game once and had no idea it was made by Rare. They had this game on their phone back in the mid-2000s.
Well, that's It's Mr. Pants Mobile Edition.
We're doing the anniversary next year for that, right?
Yeah, it's Spotlight is Mr. Pants Mobile Edition. Honestly, we probably should.
I'm not as familiar with that, so you'll have to get someone that knows the Infusio games more. Who's your best contact?
That's me. I mean, I'll have to just do the episode with myself.
I think you could make an AI based on yourself. I'm sure everyone would love to listen to 2 Hyles. One of which makes less sense than the other. Yeah,
I'd really love to incorporate more AI into DK Vine. I mean, I feel like we have to do it, right? The whole internet is doing it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I 100% completed It's Mr. Pants Mobile Edition. So one of the little notches on my bedpost that I can brag about. But I figured, instead of focusing on the areas of It's Mr. Pants that focus on the gameplay, I figured we'd instead focus on something that doesn't get enough love, even among the diehards of It's Mr. Pants, and why I think it's one of the greatest puzzle games of all time, if not the greatest. The ultra convoluted, nonsensical lore of It's Mr. Pants. So, on this episode, we will discuss how a shit website mascot for Rare was laundered fraudulently as a Banjo-Kazooie spin-off character and then took over the discarded scraps of a game Donkey Kong didn't want anymore. But from an in-universe perspective. This is the life story of the character of Mr. Pants. This is character witness, Mr. Pants. Oh yeah. So, saving the best episodes for the very end of the season.
Yeah, we still have time to squeeze in Beast de Rare for the Crayon Snake, right? I can probably do that tomorrow.
I feel like we need to do a character witness for the Crayon Snake first, before we get to the Beast de Rare for the Crayon Snake.
So they're both season 13 episodes, right? I can force you to commit to that now that there's people watching. Just Andre is not going to forget that you commit to it.
You're not going to, sign me up for things. You don't have the power. People don't have the power to just sign me up for things.
Hey, Just Andre, do you think Hyle should make the shirt that I sent him months ago and he still hasn't made? Yeah, I'm Just Andre, and I think you should. Oh, thank you.
This is a good time to remind people that we do live stream episodes of The Kongversation for our $5 and up patrons, where they can abuse me and my mental well-being.
Yeah, and there's only 2 of them here.
Well, it is the Character Witness Mr. Pants episode, so that is to be expected. Again, it's a holiday week that we're recording this, and it's an episode about Mr. Pants. This doesn't really bring in the eyeballs that a Donkey Kong or Banjo-Kazooie based episode would. Let's be honest. But all the same, if you would like to support DK Vine, you can do so on our Patreon. And you even can listen to this wonderful podcast as it's being made, warts and all. What a treat.
Oh, don't speak that harshly about yourself.
No, I actually have smooth, supple skin. Thank you very much. DK Vine is also on Twitch and YouTube. I have recently resurrected my DK Vine Done Slow series. I am currently playing through the Donkey Kong Land trilogy and then archiving said streams on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to both. Now, Freezer, what's happening in your little YouTube empire at the moment? What do you have got in the works for 2025?
Right now, I am still working on what was meant to be December's video, and it clearly won't be. I usually talk about handheld games, and just because I will be, hopefully next year I'll actually do a video on It's Mr. Pants. It'll be maybe the first one anyone's watched on YouTube. But at the moment, I'm currently working on a PC video for the Thief series. It's a series of stealth games from the late 90s, early 2000s that 5 people have played. I think Andre is one of them. And they're really good. That's going to be like a 3-hour video because I hate myself and people that watch my stuff. But primarily, I just work on little videos on handheld games. I'm doing another video on some tactical RPGs, so I know you're glazing it over, not even listening. But
what?
There's a game called Front Mission that was a Super Famicom game, and I am talking about its WonderSwan remake, its DS remake, and Switch remake, because someone has to. And then I haven't thought that far ahead. I just do this one thing at a time until I eventually die.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Oh, I know it all too well. I've got a lot of videos in the works here at DK Vine for the year ahead. And, you know, it's nice because I've noticed since the Donkey Kong Country theme park opened up that more people are stumbling upon my videos from the previous year as they look for Donkey Kong lore videos.
Yeah, and when the Mr. Pants theme park opens up, more people watch this video.
I know. I'm thinking, wow, you know, they're really going to be disappointed when this episode goes live. Because
I mean, that's what happens whenever they watch anything of yours, let's face it.
Oh.
I'm kidding. I love the episodes I'm on.
You know how to just seriously give me a pep talk before we start. Like, I feel really jazzed and ready to go for this episode now.
If it helps in any way, you are the only reason I know who Mr. Pants is.
It does help. It does make me feel better. Thank you.
You improved my life, and I also know about Uncle Tusk because of you. I know about Just Andre because of you. These are important milestones.
Sure. Well, you mentioned Uncle Tusk, which segues well into the character of Mr. Pants and how he became a real, tangible part of Rare's shared universe, which of course includes Donkey Kong, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker, and more.
Jet Force Gemini, Perfect Dark, Mickey's Racing Adventure.
You know, really, I'm just going to edit all of your bits out that don't conform with the canon of DK Vine and the Kongversation. So I'm just going to, if you only say 5 minutes worth of audio during this entire episode in the finished final product, that's why.
Well, it'll be an upgrade, so that's good. You can just cut out everything I'm saying and it'll seem like you're losing your mind.
I mean, I think I do that well enough on my own. I don't need any assistance. I could just sit here and, I mean, that's basically what DK Vine Done Slow is, or the DKU Lore Tour videos, where it just sounds like somebody having a mental health crisis. And
this is actually an intervention. We're here to help you.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't think you're doing a good job, but thank you.
And I'll help you in the long run when you realize how big a mistake this all is.
I don't think it is, though, because I think my thesis for this episode is that Mr. Pants is the purest, most quintessential Rare character in the entire canon. And to understand that, we need to rewind back to Mr. Pants' origins. And for longtime listeners of the Kongversation, this bit won't be a revelation. You will know the story quite well. Cameron and I did an episode on the Rareware website, the classic Rare web zone that was launched in 1998. And in that episode, we got into the debut, not in the games, but the debut of a concept, the concept of a character that first appeared as the survey taker on Rare's website. And that was where Mr. Pants was first formed. Now, Lee Loveday, the writer at Rare, who is still at Rare today, and who was basically the sole hand at the beginning of their website, the sole author behind it, Lee Loveday asked the artist at Rare, so, probably your Chris, your Steve Mails, your Kev Baylesses, probably asked them to create a new character for the site's survey page. And obviously, they were all too busy actually making video games and doing art for the video games, making such memorable characters as, mid-1998, so, Evil
Mickey
Acorn.
Mouse, they invented him, right?
They invented Mickey Mouse, which is why Steamboat Willie is now in the public domain, because, they used Mumbo's time travel spell to go back to 1927 or whenever it came out.
Wow, you don't even know your Steamboat Willie facts immediately.
No, it's because Mickey's Racing Adventure and Speedway USA is not DKU.
It is DKU. You just don't understand. One of these days, I'm going to weigh you down until you accept it or block me, and I don't know when that will be.
I've met my quota for retroactively deciding that, that game's part of the DKU. Yeah, that game's part of the DKU. Yeah, that game's part of the DKU. I did that for 3 games the other year.
Yeah, and you were late for all of them. They should have all been done decades ago, but...
I think I've eaten my crow. I think I've, said, oh yeah, I was wrong. Enough for this decade. So I'm not going to have any, mea culpa.
So January 1st, 2030, the calendar resets. We can talk about Mickey's Racing Adventure, right?
Fine. I'm just going to kick that can down the road.
Okay.
So anyway, because all the artists were busy creating characters like Sprout the Beanstalk and I don't know, the Booker the Owl, or Hooter the Owl, Booker the Caterpillar, mixing up my Donkey Kong 64 characters, such memorable, beloved characters.
Are you sure you're a real Donkey Kong fan? Maybe we should just give your site to someone that knows all this stuff.
It's the end of the year, and I'm burned out, so apologies for...
Well, thanks for talking to me when you're burned out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I apologize for transposing the names of the Donkey Kong 64 characters that we completely made up. Lee Loveday then doodled up an intentionally shit character because he couldn't get the professional artist to do it. He was just like, fine, I'll do it myself. And because I'm not an artist, it's going to have to be rubbish on purpose to hide the fact that I can't draw. So he created the character Mr. Pants, which of course is a play on words, as pants in UK slang means poor quality or rubbish or shit. And pants also specifically refers to underwear, not trousers. So what we call underwear, what I call underwear, might just be called pants over there. So it's a name that has layers upon layers, but layers that are usually lost on an American audience, which is why the game
which is
barely
weird because
released
he's not
over here.
wearing any layers.
That we can see. He might be wearing a cod piece or some other...
An invisible jacket.
Yeah.
Because it would be cold in Pantsland, so maybe he just has lots of invisible stuff on.
He could have, like, for all we know, given that he's just a crude doodle, he could have, like, nipple clamps or something. This was the era where rare characters like to put stuff in or through their nipples. It's true. So, from there, Mr. Pants would become a prominent fixture on the website. And as the website developed and started to cultivate an audience and started to build in-jokes, we would start to get little snippets, little glimpses of Mr. Pants' fictional biography, little ideas of his day-to-day life. And this was then even, like, celebrated by the fans when they would write in. And Chris Alcock, who of course would go on to join Rare a couple of years later, he even created a fan game. The backstory that developed for the character of Mr. Pants on Rare's website, it got very, very convoluted and sticky very quickly because we were introduced to the secondary character of Mrs. Pie. And Mrs. Pie, it turned out, was Mr. Pants' lover. However, given the difference in surnames and the fact that Mrs. Pie seems to be married, the question naturally arose, well, wait a second, what's going on there? And it turned out that Mrs. Pie is married to a Mr. Pie and is having a torrid affair with Mr. Pants.
I don't think it's, like, a bad thing. I think everyone's consensual with this, and it's an agreed upon thing.
What, Mr. Pie's into it? Like, he sits in the corner and watches?
Yeah.
Mm.
Wouldn't you want to make your Mrs. Pie happy?
Well, the fact that they then sired a son together...
they're a vampire, okay.
Their union...
So I've never heard sire in a non-vampire monster kind of context.
Well, I don't hang out with vampires, so I use it independent of the vampiric culture. I don't go to bike clubs or whatever it is. So anyway, there is a vampire.
You would if Donkey Kong was a vampire.
Well, there is a vampire, sort of, and it's Mr. Pants. So we can discuss vampires later. But they produced. They sexed. They sexed out a child.
They ejaculated into Mrs. Pie.
The aptly named Mrs. Pie produced Toby, their son. Toby Pie is his full given name. And like you said, everyone seems cool with this arrangement. And I think it's just due to the fact how, as we would learn more about Mr. Pants, as his backstory and his career and his sort of place in the universe was clarified and cemented, it just turns out that Mr. Pants is an awesome dude that everyone loves. And nobody can say, you shouldn't be doing that, Mr. Pants. They're usually just like, yeah, go for it. Yeah, go ahead and have an affair with my wife. Yeah, have a love child. Whatever. It's cool. From there, from the sort of cult of personality that developed around Mr. Pants. By the way, for those who don't know, when I say Mr. Pants is a shit doodle, that's really what he is. He's not quite a stick figure. He's often referred to as a stick figure, but he's got a torso and a large protruding bulge in his genitalia, but it's a little bit more defined than a stick figure. His limbs are a stick figure, but he's still got the torso, and he's still got the head, and he's still got nipples.
Mrs. Pie is a stick figure.
Mrs. Pie is a stick figure, yes. Okay, so Mr. Pants is a white, pasty British man in a bowler hat with a little mustache and red Y-front underwear. And that's it. That's his design. Mrs. Pie is a stick figure with a head. She's got what appears to be a black beret and 4 strands of hair sticking out. And she's constantly walking around in her bra and underwear. And that's her design.
I can't believe you have to explain what these designs are like. Sorry, you got a bad audience here if they don't know this off by heart. Well,
I feel like a lot of people won't know the character of Mrs. Pie.
And I guess this might be someone's first episode. You know, they see this on their YouTube recommendations. And
they went to the Donkey Kong Country theme park in Japan, and they said, I want to know more about the history of the Donkey Kong universe, about Donkey Kong lore, and this is the episode that they stumble upon. And they were just like, I don't remember seeing Mrs. Pie at the theme park, but I guess I have to go back and look for her. I obviously just missed her. There were so many people walking around in just their bras that...
I would love it if they didn't have K. Rool but had Mrs. Pie.
Yeah, I think that would be a bigger win, honestly, if they did have Mrs. Pie at the park, but not K. Rool. And if they said, we're never using K. Rool, but we are going to gradually incorporate the entire cast of It's Mr. Pants.
It was a wasted opportunity for Smash to not include Mrs. Pie.
Yeah, I know. At least as an assist trophy, but I feel like that would be the bigger win, even though probably 80% 95%, 99% of the community would take that very, very poorly. And there would probably
They're not my community if they take it poorly.
There would probably be a small riot on our hands, and then they would burn Donkey Kong Country to the ground. I'm not suggesting anyone do that. I am arguing against it. Please, everyone. Please. I know how much you love K. Rool, but have you considered Mrs. Pie?
Speaking of Mrs. Pie...
Yes.
Do you think underneath the bra is just a stick figure, or do you think there's body there like Mr. Pants? Because he has a torso. Do you think she just has boobs underneath that, or is it all stick?
So let's get this out of the way. I do not think Mr. Pants, Mrs. Pie, or the other residents of what we would come to know as Pantsland are literally stick figures. I think it's an artistic representation of them. But I don't think
understand the source material.
I don't think this is like a Paper Mario situation where he's literally a Paper Mario.
It's better than Paper Mario,
right? No, I mean, It's Mr. Pants is better than any Mario RPG. I said it, even though I haven't played most Mario RPGs.
Yeah, actually, neither have I. But It's Mr. Pants is better than Tetris and Puyo Puyo and Pack Attack and all those other games.
I did say It's Mr. Pants was better than Tetris to It's Mr. Pants chief architect Paul Makachek. So, that's off my bucket list. I can sleep easy tonight.
I legitimately agree, even though I I've tried to make my partner play the game, and they can't without muting it and also setting, like, the background to black and white and all the shapes on because it's an overstimulating mess. Which I don't get. You need to experience it.
Yeah. It's the overstimulation. It's the cacophony of nonsense that really pulls me in. But no, I think Mrs. Pie has... I mean, she's very thin, obviously, but she seems to be stacked in the bra area. So, and she's got wide birthing hips. Hence Toby. So, Toby, he wouldn't be established really until It's Mr. Pants, but Toby is just a little boy. a little boy.
He's not that little. He's a giant little boy.
Well, he's about half the height of Mr. Pants and Mrs. Pie. He actually wears a shirt, but he does seem to be just walking around in blue underpants as well.
Do we know how old Toby is? Because I've never been able to gauge this.
I would surmise that he's probably around between 5 to 8 years old, maybe.
That's what I think, but then I look at him here, and that's a tall 5 to 8 year old.
Could be that Mr. Pants and Mrs. Pie are just short king and short queen. Maybe. So, anyway, as I said, Mr. Pants would develop a bit of a cult following for the really diehard readers of Rare's website, which of course I am included in that. Cameron is included in that. Chris Alcock was included in that. So many people would read Rare's website and really consider that to be like our main conduit to Rare. It was just basically the essence of Rare getting pumped into our veins on a weekly basis. So it was only a matter of time before influences from Rare's very popular website would start creeping into the games themselves. And it took a little bit of time from its debut in sort of the middle of 1998 to the first actual reference to it in a video game, which was October 1999. Jet Force Gemini,
which is an important DKU game.
Not DKU.
They fundamental DKU games. More important than Banjo-Tooie, let's face it.
I wanted Jet Force Gemini to be DKU.
You didn't want it enough. You're the problem.
No, it's not that I didn't want it enough. It's that the universe didn't provide it for me. So I had to be honest with it.
He's real. He put graffiti of himself on the walls. He's doing like a Doctor Who Bad Wolf situation to get you to recognize him. And you still don't do it.
Again, if this was Mr. Pants' first appearance, then It's Mr. Pants would not be DKU because there's... Okay.
It would. Now, I know your rules. Your rules make no sense. And when you die, I will hopefully kill off everyone else until I'm eventually the one in charge of your website. There's probably millions of people I'd have to kill first. But I will change the rules. And there'll be peace in the world.
You can't change the rules. The rules are beyond even me.
You'll be dead. You'll be dead.
You can't do that.
You can't stop me.
Anyway, Jet Force Gemini is not Mr. Pants' first appearance, but it is the first reference.
It's his first appearance in a video game. His first appearance was the website. And you can stop arguing with this, Hyle. Let's move on to the second game.
No. We have to explain what it is, though. We can't just gloss over.
Everyone knows about Jet Force Gemini.
No, okay. So many people barely even know Jet Force Gemini, let alone Mr. Pants. I feel like you're taking a lot of things for granted here, Freezer.
This is... Okay, just to be completely clear, I've never actually played Jet Force Gemini.
Jeez. So you're just like the worst devil's advocate then. You're just like egging me on.
But I'm right. I know I'm right.
You're trying to get my blood pressure up. Oh, okay. So there is a graffiti of Mr. Pants that appears on the walls of Tolfrit Castle. Now, this is just the little doodle, the original doodle of him with a clipboard on Rare's website. They just plonked it in there. Okay? So, cool. I mean, that's cool. If any Rare fan is playing this and they're like, oh my god, it's Mr. Pants! Oh my god!
You know, Have you ever... Okay, I know you haven't, so I don't need to phrase it like this, but there's a game called Link Between Worlds where Link can put himself in 2 dimensions on a wall, and I think Mr. Pants did the same thing here. I'm the expert on this game, but, it's a Zelda game. It's...
Oh! Zelda!
You know that guy that met up with the Brothers Bear in Donkey Kong Country 3?
Yeah, the one who was really shit at getting hero coins.
Yeah, he's like me, so I like him.
Now, what you're going to argue then is that the one cheat that turns all of the villainous ants in the game into reskins of Mr. Pants, Pants for Ants. You argue that that's an actual appearance of Mr. Pants, but it's clearly just reskinning the baddies to look like Mr. Pants.
No, it's Mr. Pants.
Okay.
And there can be multiple of him, just like when you pick multiple Donkey Kongs in Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart or something.
But that's like
Mr.
saying
has
that...
cloned himself, duplicate, he's allowed to be everywhere. He is... You know how people say God is everywhere? Well, Mr. Pants is everywhere.
That's like saying turning on DK mode in GoldenEye and making like Pierce Brosnan and Alan Cumming have the proportions of Donkey Kong is making them all Donkey Kong.
That's not DKU. I'm not that silly. Now, if Pierce Brosnan looked just like Donkey Kong, then I would say it is. But the proportions aren't enough. If the ants had the proportions of Mr. Pants, which would be fucked up. If they did, I wouldn't say that's them, but this is a custom model of Mr. Pants and all his clones. So yeah, it's canon.
It's not canon. But here's the thing. It's interesting though, because this is the only time that Mr. Pants has ever been rendered as a 3D model, which is why it looks so wrong and why it's so non-canon.
I'm not gonna argue. It's like, sometimes that you just can't change someone. So I'm just waiting until you die. That's easier.
I'm going to outlive everyone, all right?
You actually will. Your diet is way better than mine. I've had chocolate and Subway, and that's my entire day so far. I'm surprised I've lived this long.
I had some rice and tempeh today, so...
And I don't even know what that is. So I know what rice is, but you're that healthy.
So... It would be a little over a year, about 13 months, before Mr. Pants would make his actual video game debut, his real first appearance as a true video game character.
I'm not arguing. I'm just putting up with it.
Banjo-Tooie, which of course is sort of in the zeitgeist right now, given that it recently debuted on Nintendo Switch Online.
Oh, that's why. I thought you meant because it's the 20th anniversary of Saberwulf GBA, or the 40th anniversary of Saberwulf ZX.
Mm.
That's probably why they released Banjo-Tooie this year.
Banjo-Tooie, as I just recently discussed with Josh Wallen from Off of the Geek Critique, it was sort of the basis, the launching pad of all of these Game Boy Advance games. Saberwulf, It's Mr. Pants, and
Banjo Pilot.
Well, there are several references to Tooie in Banjo Pilot.
It's almost as many as there are Donkey Kong references.
Banjo-Tooie sort of spun off several different branches of the DKU, and Mr. Pants is probably the most interesting out of all of them, because while Saberman is in the game as a definable character that Mumbo, Banjo, and Kazooie all interact with, this is a little bit more baroque. It's a little bit more obscured of a character appearance. Now, the first time you might see a reference to Mr. Pants in Banjo-Tooie, it's actually kind of similar to the Jet Force Gemini thing, where he appears as a constellation in Witchy World's Dodgem Dome's simulated starfield. So if you stand in the lobby of the Dodgem Dome and look at the rotating starfield out the windows, eventually you will see a constellation in the shape of Mr. Pants. And that was very exciting back in the year 2000. It was just like, oh, have you spotted Mr. Pants yet in Witchy World? Do you know where he is?
Life was so different pre 9/11.
Yeah,
This was the biggest thing on anyone's mind.
That's actually what they whispered to George W. Bush in that famous picture. It wasn't a second plane has hit the World Trade Center. It was a second Mr. Pants reference has been found in Banjo-Tooie. I was talking about this. Now, the more famous reference is what we at DK Vine, bite your tongue, define as the first physical appearance of Mr. Pants.
As Just Andre said in the chat, if spirits in Smash Bros. Possessing playable characters counts as an appearance, then the Jet Force Gemini ants that assume both the appearance and the soul of Mr. Pants, that should equally count, right?
There's nothing in Jet Force Gemini that says Mr. Pants' soul is going into the ants. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is built around the notion of spirits.
Maybe you need to replay Jet Force and see it. Maybe it's in the manual. Maybe if you play it backwards, it'll actually say that.
That only works for Beatles songs, okay? It doesn't work for Jet Force Gemini. Think about Jet Force Gemini is I've tried to get into it so many times, and I just can't. But that has no bearing on its DKU status.
Because we all know it's DKU.
Okay. Mr. Pants appears on Boggy's new widescreen TV that's apparently made out of ice in his family's igloo in Hale Fire Peak. So before Boggy settles down for the night with some softcore bear pornography that he invites Banjo to sit in with him and watch, he is watching a television program where Mr. Pants is dancing provocatively on a single shot. Just one camera. Mr. Pants is just dancing on this background, like this backdrop of like a yellow circle on green. And it's just a continual like looping shot of Mr. Pants dancing. Now, some people might argue, why do you consider this to be an actual appearance of Mr. Pants? Well, we have something to back us up.
You invent the rules.
I do not invent the rules. I let the rules get channeled through me from some otherworldly plane.
Change them 2 decades later.
I am but a vessel for the rules, okay? The rules are being sent down from on high, perhaps from the Lord of Games himself. So the Banjo-Tooie cast list, it's kind of filtered through the actual staff credits, because each rare staff member, similar to Banjo-Kazooie, but each rare staff member gets kind of paired with a Banjo-Tooie character, right? So it's like their first name, the Banjo-Tooie character, their last name. And for Lee Loveday, his credit actually gets impaired with Mr. Pants. So it's Lee Mr. Pants Loveday. And we say this confirms that this is an actual in the flesh then projected on the screen appearance of Mr. Pants, and his first true one as a video game character. Jet Force Gemini references notwithstanding.
You know, if anyone ever beat Jet Force Gemini, they'll probably find the credits do the same thing.
So this means that Mr. Pants technically debuted in a video game as a Banjo-Tooie character, just like Ryan Stiles, beloved actor and improv comic, debuted in a video game as a Conker character.
Are you listening to yourself?
Yes, I am. I'm perfectly logical. I just see things on a higher plane than the normies out there, okay? So this confirms that in addition to the implications and lore established on the Rare website that Mr. Pants is some sort of underwear model and underwear manufacturer, he's also a television presenter in the UK, and the Rare Archipelago gets the programming he's featured on. He seems to be quite popular since, at least on the Isle of Hags, they watch a show, and whoever constructed the Dodgem Dome in Witchy World thought enough of him and thought like so highly of him that they slipped in that constellation reference. They were like,
that could just be a coincidence. Like when you see Jesus in Toast.
It could just be a random pairing of stars, and they didn't.
And maybe this isn't a TV show. Maybe Bear Babes has like a little prologue of a dancing guy.
Mr. Pants is the problematic host of Bear Babes, and he goes around telling bears to like show their goods for like beads and stuff. So this is an important building block towards what would come later, because not only is Mr. Pants an underwear mogul, but he's also a TV presenter. Now, as a matter of fact, we also learned that Grunty Industries' chief product from the boxes that we see, from the crates we see in Grunty Industries, is actually underpants, which would make them a direct competitor with Mr. Pants in the Rare Archipelago. So I like to think that Gruntilda and Mr. Pants are just fierce business rivals.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm letting you take me on this ride until I give up.
Until you get to It's Mr. Pants. I haven't mentioned a handheld game yet, and you're just going into a catatonic state.
Banjo-Tooie's alright. It's got Saberman in it. It's basically a handheld. It's a handheld game now.
Yeah, you can play it in handheld mode now, so what are you complaining about? Grab by the Ghoulies would then come out in 2003. Of course, it was Rare's Xbox debut. And it's probably, pound for pound, the Rare game that's most loaded with references. And some of those references are actual physical characters, like Royston the Goldfish. Most, however, are just little winks and nods. I guess Saberwulf is also in there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if Ghoulies or Saberwulf GBA is the most self-referential. So they're definitely up there. And there's lots of references between them as well.
I think most of the references in Saberwulf GBA also get nods in Grab by the Ghoulies, in especially the game room. But yeah, there are references to Mr. Pants throughout Ghoulhaven Hall, which Ghoulhaven Hall, it's up for debate. Obviously, Showdown Town throws a wrinkle into things, and people still argue, even on the DK Vine staff, where Showdown Town is actually located. But the original idea, at the very least, was that Ghoulhaven Hall was in the English countryside, specifically on the English coast somewhere, because you can see it from the lighthouse. And we know, like, the zombie pirates sail in, so it is, like, ocean adjacent. And if Mr. Pants is popular on the Isle of Hags, well, he's a rock star in Ghoulhaven Hall, because there are images, references, and products all attributed to Mr. Pants throughout the mansion. We have just pictures of Mr. Pants, pinned up on bulletin boards throughout, in the kitchen in Ma Soupswill's domain. She just got a picture of Mr. Pants up there, I guess either crushing on him or just uses him as culinary inspiration. I need to cook something that's as good as Mr. Pants is pure. I don't know.
Maybe that's a picture of her, love interest, and there's extra lore we don't know.
Well, there could be. I would welcome that. Let's, Mr. Pants could have a harem of, lovers. We don't even know where Mr. Pants has stuck it throughout the years. We only know Mrs. Pie up until this point, but it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if his bed was extra roomy for that very purpose. It was just kind of like a free-for-all, a when in Rome type situation where it's just, yeah, you know what? He's probably the world's greatest lover. And so who wouldn't want to experience that at least once in their life?
Well, as for world's second greatest lover, I'll accept that.
There are also, like, images, Mr. Pants underwear, they're just doodled on a game of Hangman elsewhere in the mansion. There's the educational poster nearby, like in the schoolroom, that just says P is for pants. And Mr. Pants is on there. This is actually his, like, later image that would be used for It's Mr. Pants. So, like, Grab by the Ghoulies has a blend of the earlier crude doodles and the more refined, like, images from Ryan Stevenson.
I thought you were going to say Ryan Stiles.
No, Ryan Stiles wouldn't become DKU until a year and a half after this freezer, actually.
Well, actually, the first DKU thing was the British version of Whose Line. So it starts from there. It should actually be the Whose Line You, but... You
know what? The RSU, the Ryan Stiles universe, I'm sure that website will be a great splinter faction from DK Vine, and we can have
when they make a Ryan Stiles theme park, it'll really blow up.
We can have wonderful religious wars against each other in centuries to come. We get a product associated with Mr. Pants that isn't underwear for the very first time. Now, this could just be he lent his image, he, like, licensed his brand to this product, or he could manufacture them. We don't really know. But Mr. Pants chocolate treats, boxes of them are found, like, scattered in the corners of the mansion. So, is that a reference to, is that, like, supposed to be a cheeky nod to shit? Because Mr.
That was
Pants...
my first thought, but...
Yeah.
The developers at Rare are so smart that I can't even comprehend what they're thinking.
Such highbrow humor can't even be perceived by peasants like us.
It'll make sense in a few decades. They're playing the long game.
There's also a Get Well Soon card. Several of them, in fact, in the infirmary, hanging on the walls over the beds for all the, like, the sick children and whatnot that are taken to Ghoulhaven Hall. Now, we don't know if these Get Well Soon cards are, like, mass mailed by Mr. Pants, if this is part of his, like, charitable work. Like,
I'm thinking he sends them out to every illegitimate child he has.
You know, like, this could be this thing where he, like, visits children's hospitals and what have you. He does these Make-A-Wish visits and he sends out these cards that just say "Get Well Soon" XX, and they have his image on them.
Wow, 2 X's. That's going to be Elon's next website.
It's not very personable, you know, but neither were my DK Vine holiday cards, and I still got them out.
Yeah, they were personable. Dustin does great work, and, you know, you help him.
I write the addresses. I write the addresses.
That's almost something.
I also include a pithy message where I say, "Get well soon."
Yeah. You need to start writing something more clever, like, "You have 6 weeks to live."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Send that to someone.
If they have 6 weeks to live, they shouldn't be listening to this podcast. You're wasting your time.
You know it. Also, this might be how someone wants to spend their last moments.
That's true. This could just be a good excuse to shuffle off. Like, you know what? I have so much to live for. And then they hear this and they're like, actually, no, get me off this planet.
See, I want to assume that people just listen to every episode of a Kongversation until they die. And, well, only the episodes you let people listen to, because you're hiding the really shit ones.
And the terrific missing episode of season 6.
Now, that's a good episode. That was good. It's good. It's better than season 1 and 2.
Not a high bar to clear, but thank you.
It's better than this episode.
So, Freezer, let's pique your interest a little bit. The next reference to Mr. Pants occurred in a game that we just discussed about half a year ago here on the podcast. Saberwulf for the Game Boy Advance.
And I love that it's basically the first thing you'll see when you start the game.
Yes, so...
Most people don't play this game for more than the first 5 minutes, so they all get to see this. This is like the Rambi of Saberwulf.
I was going to say, it's like Rambi is the most popular animal buddy because he's the animal buddy people who play Donkey Kong Country at the barest minimum will encounter. So therefore, the element of Saberwulf that people are most intimately familiar with are Saberman's intimates. His red Y-friend underwear that he's hanging up at his campsite. Now, this is a good time to discuss your theory on how Saberwulf fits into the timeline of Rare Shared Universe. Because this is one of the most contentious things about Saberwulf and placing it in the timeline. Because it seems to take place in the early to like no later than 1940s of the 20th century. And of course, this is Saberman post Banjo-Tooie, post I Was Frozen since 1984 Saberman. So how does Saberman fit into the timeline? Or how does Saberwulf fit into the timeline vis-a-vis Saberman's resurrection in Banjo-Tooie and later appearance in Banjo Pilot?
Okay, so the short version, if you want a much longer version, listen to the Saberwulf episode, because I know you want to hear every detail of this. But basically, Saberman, after Banjo-Tooie, and after Banjo Pilot, of course, he missed his old stomping grounds. He missed back in his day before he was frozen. So he asked Mumbo to send him back in time, which is something we know he can do because of Grunty's Revenge, which is a whole time travel game that no one played. And because Saberman because this Saberman lived in the 2000s for some time, however long between Tooie and Pilot there is, he was able to bring some culture with him, and he remembers Mr. Pants as the beautiful underwear model and TV personality who danced, and he was able to bring this back with him. Maybe a comforting thing, maybe he uses it to think back on old wonderful times with Banjo-Kazooie and Mumbo. But yeah. Right. Basically, Saberman went back in time to some point in the early 20th century, and he was able to avoid the rise of Nazis in the 2010s, but he went back to the 30s, and not a good time.
No, but at least he knew the end game for the Nazis there. So, and like in Avengers Endgame, he's just like Captain America. He just wanted to go back to his own time after adventures well spent, and he went back with a pair of red Y-fronts from Mr. Pants.
And you'd do the same thing when you're eventually frozen for decades. You'll want to go back in time to the 90s, early 2000s maybe, but you'll bring with you remnants of, the future Donkey Kong game, maybe the next Donkey Kong game we're going to get, which we'll probably get in 40 years. And you'll bring that with you.
So this should prove to you that I am open to suggestions, because you pitched this theory to me about Saberwulf GBA's timeline placement, and the more I thought about it, the more like, yeah, that actually makes some sense. And
because I'm always right. That's the key lesson here.
I'm showing you that I'm not stubbornly inflexible. You just have to have a good idea. And I'm sorry, but Jet Force Gemini or Mickey's Racing Adventure being DKU are not good ideas.
The rare cow was physically there in the Mickey games. And also, we're not talking about graffiti, we're talking about an actual cow.
An actual cow of which there are many, so there's no way to ascertain that it is the same cow.
Sorry, don't you do the same thing with Naughty in Banjo-Kazooie?
Well, that's a different Naughty. We say that's a different Naughty, but Naughty is not why Banjo-Kazooie is DK Diddy Kong Racing.
That's the only reason why it's DK.
No, it's not. It's just a happy little shared universe thing, but it has no bearing on Banjo-Kazooie's status as a DKU game. I'm complimenting you, and you're still tearing me down.
You're not complimenting me enough. That's the problem.
Oh my God.
You bring me on for episodes no one listens to. And you're
I'm
doing
sorry.
it while everyone's enjoying their holidays.
I'm sorry, Freezer, the host of a YouTube channel that celebrates the most obscure handheld games ever made. I'm sorry that I don't bring you on.
People have heard of.
I'm sorry I don't bring you on for the Donkey Kong episodes of the Kongversation.
Hey, you will when you do the pegging games, hopefully.
I think you're going to have to get in line for those. There's a lot of people who want to be the co-host of the Pay-On games.
Yeah, but I'm the best one.
All right. So...
See? I can change your mind with that as well. I'll start complimenting you if that helps. You're looking beautiful today.
Okay. I like that there's an It's Mr. Pants illusion in Saberwulf GBA, just like there was Saberwulf GBA references in Donkey Kong Country GBA. I like how incestuous...
The Rare Cow and Donkey Kong Country GBC.
No, I like how incestuous the Rare GBA games from this era were and how often they referenced each other. It really does help with the shared universe conceits, but that would then lead to, of course, It's Mr. Pants and It's Mr. Pants Mobile Edition the following year. Mr. Pants, of course, in It's Mr. Pants, serves as the host of this puzzle game. And when trying to make sense of the storyline for It's Mr. Pants, when I first really sat down to try to 100% complete it, I thought long and hard about this. And I was like, given his previous appearance as a television presenter, dancing continually on Boggy's television, this might imply that It's Mr. Pants is actually an in-universe game show of sorts. So, thinking about it through those lenses, suddenly a lot of pieces started falling into place, as they do in It's Mr. Pants. And I thought, well, wait a second, who is actually doing this game show then? What character is participating in solving these puzzles one after another?
And it's Ryan Stiles.
Could be Ryan Stiles if Ryan Stiles is playing It's Mr. Pants. Because logically, whoever is playing It's Mr. Pants would be the contestant on this game show. This would be the first chronological appearance of yourself in the DKU as kind of a self-insert character that would later be utilized, brought to life in a physical form via your Mii or your Xbox avatar throughout various DKU games to come.
How does this work for the many It's Mr. Pants fans born after 2005?
That's a good point. However, this doesn't necessarily have to be part of your personal canon. It could be say in Sea of Thieves, where it's not literally you who are the pirate, it's your pirate ancestor. Maybe It's Mr. Pants fanatics in decades to come can just say, well, this was my parent, this was my grandparent, this was my great-grandparent, who is a contestant on It's Mr. Pants, and I'm experiencing what they experienced back in the day.
It's like Assassin's Creed, which is, I know you know nothing about that, but that was something popular once.
No, I know Assassin's Creed. I had the lore of Assassin's Creed explained to me at an E3 once, so it was fun.
I'm sorry.
No, it was educational. In the spirit of E3, I was just open to all knowledge, even if it existed outside of my weird shared universe of monkeys and bears and pasty British men. Ryan Stiles. So, I really like this, though, especially if you were old enough to play It's Mr. Pants when it came out, or if, you were one of the dozen who actually did so, because the renown you get for being a successful contestant on It's Mr. Pants, that would also explain how you gain this notoriety among the citizens of the Rare Archipelago. So this would be why you are eventually invited to things like Mario Kart, or Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing with Banjo-Kazooie, or Kinect Sports rivals or whatever. I believe that the
I like how you went to connect sports rivals before Smash Bros. With its Mii's. Your brain is a weird little thing. Like, I wish I could dissect it.
Well, please don't do it until I'm dead. But again, I'm going to outlive you because of my tempeh and rice diet.
I'm going to make sure that my ancestors dissect you, and then they'll relive the experience of playing It's Mr. Pants through me.
Okay, that's fair enough. So, I like that the Kongs or Banjo and Kazooie, or whomever, they first watched you on It's Mr. Pants. They first became aware of you on It's Mr. Pants. And you became one of the most beloved personalities in Mr. Pants' television empire. You became something of a household name to them. It's like when a contestant does really well on Jeopardy, or like maybe like more comparable to this, like the Great British Bake Off, or some show where there's just a contestant that people are really rooting for, and then they win, and you're like, yeah! And this is how your self-insert DKU character did so to an international audience and the rare archipelago. So I just love this idea that, yeah, this is why you get to Mario Kart eventually, because you did very well on Mr. Pants' bullshit game show.
We're not inviting Diddy Kong to most of these, but we'll invite that guy from the game show. Not even the host, just that one guy.
Just that one. Well, Mr. Pants is too busy. Like, Mr. Pants is above it all.
And no one cares about Diddy Kong. They're not as important as you.
I'm not so egocentric as to argue that. That feels wrong. I'm like, no, Diddy Kong is so much more important than I am. It's just...
Not to Mario. Mario doesn't think that.
Mario doesn't think that, but Mario's a little turd, isn't he? Because Mario is just a little bit bitter that Diddy Kong got more hero coins than he did. And so he holds that grudge.
And that Diddy Kong got a better racing game on the N64?
Yeah, like, what has Mario ever solved with Mario Karting? Not much. Diddy Kong saved an island, and maybe even the entire planet. It's Mr. Pants. Fleshes out the errant Mr. Pants lore that until now was only inferred or explicitly stated through the website and the previous in-game Easter eggs. So this is the game that cemented some vital Mr. Pants facts.
The first game in the Mr. Pants series.
Yes. Well, It's Mr. Pants was the first game in the Mr. Pants series. It's Mr. Pants Mobile Edition was the second game. Where it goes from there is anybody's guess. So, Mr. Pants lives in a fictional rural county in England called Pantsland.
How do you know it's in England? Because I only ever see it looking sunny and beautiful. So I'm not suspecting that it's England.
It's occasionally sunny in England. They get sunny days. And maybe the sun always shines brighter in Pantsland because it is a virtual utopia in the Commonwealth. It is where they have learned to love thy neighbor and love all of the little animals through the power of pants, where pants have literally been cultivated to grow on trees.
That doesn't sound good for the environment. Are these pants, will they decompose? Is it sustainable?
I think they found a way. They've cracked the genetic code to get this to work. I mean, most clothing we wear, is like what, cotton, and like, unless they're made from synthetic fibers, they're natural, they're plants. So why couldn't you reverse engineer that and get underpants to grow on trees?
I'm not smart enough to know why that can't be done, but I'm sure it can't be done. If it was, Grunty Industries wouldn't be polluting so much. They care about the environment.
Mr. Pants does things from an ecological perspective. Grunty Industries only does things from the perspective of profit. So that is why they are natural rivals in the business world, just as Grunty and Banjo and Kazooie are natural rivals in the adventuring world. So Pantsland is home to a wide array of bizarre weirdos, all under the influence of Mr. Pants. Now, we already talked about Mrs. Pie and the never-seen Mr. Pie. He is the Maris of the Mr. Pants lore, in that he's referenced, but he's never seen. And Toby Pie, their son, who I believe we first saw truly in It's Mr. Pants. Mr. Pants also has several weirdos, pets, associates, and hangers-on who either reside in Pantsland or work on the production of It's Mr. Pants. Now, we're not going to talk about all of these characters. I'm only going to talk about some of the characters who are most important to Mr. Pants himself. And I think at the top of this list, outside of Vest and Socks, his two pets, Vest is the cat and Socks is the dog, obviously. We all know that. Helpo, the light bulb robot boy. He's a giant anthropomorphic light bulb. And I just assume he's robotic. He could be magical. We don't really know. He's a living light bulb. He could have just had the googly eyes from Yooka-Laylee affixed to a light bulb, and he eventually came to life that way.
I just assumed he was made of flesh, but just looked like a light bulb for some ungodly reason.
Yeah.
It's the rare universe.
He's the second child of Mr. Pants and Mrs. Pie.
A chandelier and Mrs. Pie.
Well, that could be the case too, because it is, I mean, sky's the limit when anything can be a living creature in this universe. But Helpo, I always think of Helpo as Mr. Pants' second son, effectively, no matter his lineage, no matter his parentage or method of creation. I do genuinely believe Mr. Pants loves this little light bulb boy, who, of course, helps out the contestant on It's Mr. Pants if they are completely stumped and they need a clue. They need a suggestion.
I need him a lot.
Yeah, Helpo is always there in the corner, and if you screw up enough, he's effectively the Professor Chops of the game, right? Where if you screw up enough, Helpo springs to action. He's like ringing that bell, except he's not as obnoxious as Professor Chops, let's be honest. He's delightful.
And it helps that maybe he's Mr. Pants' nephew, like how Diddy Kong is Donkey Kong's nephew.
Are you just trying to get me going with all of my triggers? Like, what is this? Is this some end of the year? Let's see if we can break Hyle?
I haven't annoyed you enough this year. I need to use it all up.
You have only been on 2 episodes of the Kongversation. Why are you trying to make this sprint towards driving me off the cliff?
Because once you die, the website will be fixed. But you understand, it's all part of my master plan.
The website is perfect. It's not perfect. I'm still trying to perfect it. It is a constant work in progress. But at the very least, we have that firewall to keep the AI scrapers out. So,
you know, AI could never recreate anything as wonderful as It's Mr. Pants. And, like, genuinely,
yeah.
If anyone tried, I'm not going to try it for obvious reasons because, you know, I don't hate the world enough, but I wonder if someone was to use, like, an art stealing generation thing or text generation, if it would even know what Mr. Pants is. Would it give you the cat? Do not test this for obvious reasons, but...
Yeah, I don't, like, for as much as the AI bot scrapers stole from DK Vine when they were plundering the website for several months, I don't think they could make heads or tails out of any of this madness. I think this is madness that could only be authored from the minds of a human. And that's what makes Mr. Pants future-proof. It's what makes it AI-proof. This is clearly the work of human creative geniuses. It could never be regurgitated through AI slop factories.
Yet. Give it a few more years.
You know, they can try, but they'll never come up with a character quite like Max, the mystical mouse, who is a mouse that Mr. Pants trained to surf or something.
Yeah, what else does he have going for him? Give me his full backstory.
We don't really know much about him except he's a mouse that presumably lives in Mr. Pants' house, and Mr. Pants was
How do you know Mr. Pants trained him to surf? I know that he can surf, but maybe he learnt that on his own.
Because I assume that every character in It's Mr. Pants owes some sort of debt to Mr. Pants, hence their participation
but it could
in
be
the
something
show.
else. Like maybe Mr. Pants saved him from a rat trap. Maybe he was going to be eaten by, one of his lovely pets. Don't you think Vest might want to eat?
Could have, and Mr. Pants saved him and said, "Hey, have we ever tried a surfing mouse?"
And then Max was like, "Wow, thank you so much. By the way, I can surf, a thing I learnt entirely on my own, and I don't like it when people assume I had to be trained how to surf."
Okay, well, we don't know much about Max, do we? But Max is a mouse.
But you're assuming a lot.
I'm assuming a lot only because I hold Mr. Pants in such high esteem.
But you still override its history.
Okay. Well, speaking of overriding, let's talk about the Crayon Snake. The Crayon Snake is sort of built to be the antagonist of It's Mr. Pants. The elements that you are racing to avoid, or evade, or beat. And, the Crayon Snake will, start at the corners of the screen and start smearing crayon marks across as it slowly fills up the perimeter of the screen. Have you ever considered what the Crayon Snake is supposed to be? Beyond just a Crayon Snake.
It could represent the futility of living in such a horrible world. Could be a darker message there.
Is the Crayon Snake actually a living creature? Is it robotic, like Helpo? Or
I suspect it's a living creature. That's why you're doing a bestiary on it. And a character witness.
Again, you can't sign me up for things. I have not agreed to this.
That's why you may do a bestiary or a character witness on Crayon Snake.
Okay, keep it vague. That's fine.
Yeah, who... Didn't it have a different name during development?
Of course it did.
A little more risque.
Yeah, of course. It was originally called the Pants Snake, as you might imagine.
Why did they change it?
Somebody was probably like, well, this game will never get a widespread release if we go with a name like the Pants Snake, or anything that hints towards the untoward. We need to keep it PG. We're going to have to give it a name like the Crayon Snake that really means nothing, and therefore this game will be distributed in every shop around the world. Didn't really work out for them, so they should have just gone with Pants Snake.
And you only see its name in the manual, I think. The game doesn't stop you and tell you. A lot of the lore of this game is something you really have to pick up on. It's subtle. The game doesn't spell out everything, which is why some people don't know how Max learned how to surf.
Andre, in the live stream chat, says the Crayon Snake is a Lovecraftian entity come from the void to devour Pantsland from the physical and incorporeal planes both.
I believe it. I've read some Lovecraft, and this doesn't seem racist enough to be it, but other than that, it fits the mold.
Sometimes I wonder, though, if the Crayon Snake is actually antagonistic, because it feels wrong, almost, for Mr. Pants to be at odds with anyone. I feel like maybe the Crayon Snake is just doing its job for its Mr. Pants.
I kind of feel like it's, something that it's nature. It's doing what it has to do to survive, but we don't like it because it encroaches on our stuff, but he's not trying to be a villain. He just wants to live. He's got his own code. We're the villains by getting in his way, actually.
Well, definitely the contestant of It's Mr. Pants would not like the Crayon Snake, but I feel like, behind the scenes, Mr. Pants and the Crayon Snake, they might hang out in the green room together, eating little fruit trays or what have you.
So with the Crayon Snake, do you assume that it's multiple Crayon Snakes? How many do you think there are? Do you think they all have different personalities?
I always assumed it was just one massive Crayon Snake, maybe made up of several different crayons, but it's just one entity.
So I'm looking at this artwork, and there's 2 here. So do you think they share a consciousness?
Yeah, it's a hive mind. Obviously.
Are you sure about that? It doesn't say that anywhere in the game. Are you just making assumptions again?
I was a contestant on It's Mr. Pants. I got an invite to Mario Kart because of this. I should know. I was there.
Does that mean you've met the rare cow?
Well, Mr. Pants uses graphics of the rare cow in It's Mr.
No,
Pants.
he uses multiple colorful rare cows that just all know how to pose wonderfully for that screen. But it had to be set up with living organic creatures.
Yeah, no Photoshop color filters, no Control-C, Control-V.
The high quality rare cow in It's Mr. Pants is how I learned that it was a little flower in its mouth. Because the rare cow's design isn't the most clear thing in the world, especially with the Game Boy Color games. But yeah, this really... I chose to get some custom rare cow art to hang up in my living room. And this was a really good reference for it.
This is also the last appearance of the rare cow in
That
any
we know
game.
of.
No, it is. It's done.
No, wait until someone finds it in Sea of Thieves.
Still looking for Captain Black Eye and TT at Sea of Thieves. You're gonna have to wait your turn.
This will come up first. But
No.
the rare cow could be in Donkey Kong Country 2 for Game Boy Advance. No one's played it. That's why we haven't seen it.
We just did a whole episode about it. I complained.
Yeah, and you
bitterly
complained the whole
about
time
ending.
about the ending.
Yeah, well,
But
okay.
Maybe if you don't complain, the rare cow shows up and uses a little microphone to know.
Imagine coming on the conversation and complaining the entire time. We wouldn't want to do that now, would we?
No, that's why I'm being very nice. And you're saying that Max doesn't know how to surf without Mr. Pants' help, and I don't like that.
I think it's spectacular that a mouse knows how to surf at all. Who cares where they learned it?
I want to give him the credit. I think he knows how to do it on his own.
Okay, we're just going to go down the list now for some minor It's Mr. Pants characters that are either living with Mr. Pants, are pets of Mr. Pants, or that Mr. Pants knows via Pantsland. There is Potted Pants, which is just a flower with a smiley face. Like,
It's like Undertale.
Sure. It appears on the windowsill of Mr. Pants' house. There is Saddle the Horse, a horse with a saddle that are red Y fronts. Ellepants, an elephant crammed into red Y fronts. Pants Eater, an anteater who eats pants. Vampants is a vampire bat with 2 small red Y front briefs over his fangs or as his fangs. I don't really know.
I assume they're physically his fangs, but he would have a difficult time biting into someone.
Unless they were crusty. If they were completely crusted over.
The clown from The Simpsons.
No, like what happens to old underwear that is vigorously stained?
Maybe all the Y-front pants were originally white until the vamp pants bit someone, soaked them in red, and then Mr. Pants was like, I like that look, we're changing everything. And vamp pants is the real trendsetter.
Yeah, the history of fashion was forever altered on that day. Now, Vampants, I guess, is just a vampire bat that lives, like, roost in Pantsland.
Is it related to Laylee?
It's part of the great lineage of bats that are purple in the DKU. There are so many purple bats in the DKU. It's astounding. There are, of course, Flip-Flaps, Squeaklies. There's Laylee. There is, what is the Banjo-Kazooie bat? I always forget their name. Nibbly. There's Vampants. Yeah. So, there could be some distant relation there, but on the same Halloween-y vibes as Vamp Pants, we also have
Gruntilda's fourth sister.
Hag in Pants, a green witch on a broom. She has a little, tote that is made out of red Y fronts. Bit more nebulous, Hag in Pants, if she knows Gruntilda and the Winky Bunyan sisters, or...
She could be one of the witches from Saberwulf.
Yes, there are witches in Saberwulf that also look like this, so... they don't have to be from the same coven. They don't have to be Winky Bunyans. They are just other witches in the DKU, and Hag in Pants is the resident witch of Pantsland. I mean, there are several other...
I like her look a lot, except the cat needed a little more work, I think. I'm assuming everyone listening is intimately familiar with all the official artwork from It's Mr. Pants.
Yeah. Most of this artwork is unlocked via doing puzzles. You do 5 puzzles, you get a new piece of artwork, and this helps flesh out the history and lore of Pantsland and the wacky cast of characters therein. And then most of these characters then show back up in the final image you get at the end of the game after the credits, which is just a group photo of everyone visiting a small tropical island, presumably in the Rare Archipelago. So there are other characters. There is a genie who... we call Fez the Genie, because he's got a fez. Now, Fez the Genie raises the question, if Mr. Pants has access to a wish-granting genie, not too dissimilar from Taj, as seen in Diddy Kong Racing, could Mr. Pants have wished this charmed life he leads? Could the reason he be such a successful businessman, such a beloved television personality, and the fact that he can cuckold someone's wife and everybody in the county be perfectly cool with it, could it be the fact that this genie has given him this magical, charmed life? Is this the implication?
He wouldn't be the kind of person to deceive us. He just deceives, Mr. Pie, but that's fine.
Could it be that he doesn't even remember? He wished for this life, and his last wish was, I wish to forget that I ever made this wish, so therefore I think I earned all of this naturally.
I mean, there's no way I can answer that, so thanks for the loaded question, but I don't think he would have. Mr. Pants is just... He's someone who pulled himself up by the bootstraps. He's a successful guy
boots?
that didn't get any help. Look at his little legs. There's probably boots on them.
I always just imagine Mr. Pants walking around with his sexy little
With his
toes,
little toes out,
wiggling in the sand. Yeah.
If that was the case, Platonic would post more about it.
Well, it's not like Platonic has completely forgotten about Mr. Pants, but there's also a mermaid, Merpants. She's got a pair of red Y fronts on her tail. Yeah.
I can see why you had to do a character witness on Mr. Pants before. So many other important characters.
Right. So there are 2 more characters I want to discuss, but this also leads us into what else the artwork provides for us, because the artwork that we unlock throughout It's Mr. Pants, and that, appears in things like the background of puzzles, alludes to Mr. Pants also having this wide, romantic, jet-setting lifestyle, exploring all over the world and spreading the gospel of his underpants. Sticking underpants on the Kremlin. I said Kremlin. On the Kremlin, for instance. Watch out for those Kremlins. But I just like this idea that wherever Mr. Pants goes, he has to leave behind a pair of red Y fronts, either on a physical monument, a landmark, or on a actual person he meets. And
maybe he's a serial killer and that's his trademark thing.
He's got the pathology of a serial killer without actually doing serial killing.
That we know of. That could be the next game. They've been working 20 years on a gritty sequel.
Oh, that would be so dispiriting because I think so highly of Mr. Pants, and even though that might be the work,
you think that you think he might have wished for everything because he didn't deserve it?
I didn't say he didn't deserve it. I mean, a lot of people deserve only the best, but because of the harsh realities of the systems we live under, they are denied it. The ladder is pulled up before they can climb it. So, some people do deserve a genie to let them jump in front of the top 1% who are born into that wealth and privilege. I'm not saying Fez the Genie is a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's a possibility that Mr. Pants circumvented the obstacles that were keeping him back.
I'll accept it. But something I find really interesting about Mr. Pants is, thanks to the artwork in the game, we see that he also has a superhero identity, which doesn't come up very often.
Yes. He is pictured several times doing super heroic deeds, which is probably...
including flying, by the looks of it.
Or at least leaping, like Superman did in his earliest appearances. Superman couldn't fly at first. He could only leap over tall buildings in a single bound. So it's possible that he's not flying. He's just jumping wide gulfs. And, who knows? But I do think that Mr. Pants, because he sometimes wears a mask in his superhero identity. He sometimes wears just a thin little mask around his eyes. And I'm just like, do you think that's an effective secret identity, considering everything else about you is the same, except you have a cape?
It works for Superman.
Yeah, Superman, though, in his day-to-day life, isn't wearing a Superman costume and glasses.
And neither was Mr. Pants' superhero identity, because he had a giant P on his shirt, which Mr. Pants doesn't. Also, I said shirt, I meant skin. Yeah, on his skin, between his nipples. Sorry. I'm used to torsos being shirts. I'm not used to playing games.
He just takes a Sharpie and just writes a P on his chest. It's just like, yeah, that'll do. Who could I be? Ooh, I'm an international man of mystery.
He also has a cape.
He also has a cape.
So if you see him from behind, he looks nothing like Mr. Pants. If you see him from the front, you're too distracted by the giant P. I think it's a pretty effective costume. We only know it's him because it was an unlockable thing to see in his game.
Right, he's giving the game away. He's giving it away on his game show. Like, oh yeah, I'm also a superhero. No one's going
to play the hard levels if it's Mr. Pants. People give up by that point.
So in addition to his part-time vigilante career, he also visits around the world, as I said. It's suggested he's visited the Rare Archipelago because some of the puzzles in It's Mr. Pants are based on residents, such as Banjo or Birdie the Scarecrow. So I like this idea that he's island hopped the Rare Archipelago and met several of the characters we know along the way. Just showed up in front of Banjo's house, knocked on his door, and there's Mr. Pants from off of the TV. It's like, oh my God, it's Mr. Pants. What are you doing here? And Mr. Pants just explains that he's just, traveling the area, meeting people. How do you do? Would you like to be a puzzle on my upcoming game show?
And Banjo would love it because he's used to collecting puzzle pieces.
That's true. Yeah, he's like, I know all about puzzles. I stand on my carpet and I look up at that picture of Bob. I'm just doing Bill Clinton. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was about to ask why he's talking to Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Is there a Bill Clinton puzzle in this game that I forgot?
Fortunately not. They had the foresight to cut that one out. But Mr. Pants, and this is important to discussing two of my favorite characters, Mr. Pants has also been to the moon in a homemade rocket that he and Toby used. And we know it's homemade because the thrusters are red Y-fronts.
He could have commissioned it.
The wings are red Y-fronts. I mean, he could have commissioned it. It's still effectively homemade. He's not going to NASA. This was before Elon Musk's companies were shooting people into space, or or Jeff Bezos or other hard billionaires were shooting people into space. This is back in the day where space travel was really kept to the professionals. So I like the idea that Mr. Pants and Toby just like workshop this in their backyard and it's like, all right, let's hop in and give it a go. Let's shoot ourselves to the moon and see what happens. And of course, the charmed life that they lead, everything turned out fine.
But because he's not wearing a spacesuit proper, like he's got a helmet on, but I'm pretty sure it's cold on the moon. And I think there's radiation. Correct me if I'm wrong. But maybe the real Mr. Pants died and they replaced him like they did with Paul McCartney. Yeah,
but having never played Jet Force Gemini backwards, I'll never know for sure. I do think he must have limited his exposure on the moon. It could be a plot line when we get that third Mr. Pants game. Mr. Pants develops cancer from the space radiation. We don't know.
That's why he's so white.
I love that he planted the Pants flag on the moon. You would think it would just be, red Y fronts on a pole, but no, there's actually a flag with red Y fronts on it, which I assume is the flag of Pantsland. It's the official county emblem. But it was on the moon where he presumably met the characters Pluto Pants, which is an official name, by the way. That is the name for his puzzle, or for his picture you unlock by doing the puzzles. Pluto Pants and Robo Pants. Now, Pluto Pants is this extraterrestrial character. He looks like your vintage sci-fi 1950s Martian with antenna sticking on his bulbous head, and he's got pointy ears and yellow eyes, kind of a mix between a gray alien and a classic Martian in a little personal yellow flying saucer spacecraft.
Little flying saucer. It kind of looks like an upside down bowler hat, so maybe that's how they first got to know each other.
They hit it off. Yeah, it's like it looks like you've got my spaceship on your head. It looks like you've got your body in my hat. And they became friends.
And if you turn his design upside down, then you put the Y front and the hat in the right place.
Right, because Mr. Pants did stick a pair of red Y fronts on his extraterrestrial's head. And the extraterrestrial was cool with it, just as everybody is cool with Mr. Pants doing whatever the fuck he wants, because he's so charming.
Everyone's always been cool with white people colonizing new areas. There's never been issues.
But it completed Pluto Pants' look, and Mr. Pants presumably named him Pluto Pants. I don't know. He's probably not from Pluto, but he took the name in stride, along with his Robo pal, Robo Pants.
Who doesn't have any pants on him.
No, but
I can tell.
He's Robo Pants by association of being friends with Pluto Pants. Being the robot assistant to Pluto Pants. I don't know. This is all nonsense, isn't it? Mr. Pants also, Paul Makachek talked a little bit about this piece of artwork, put his signature pants on the monolith from 2001 A Space Odyssey, which he presumably stumbled upon when he was in Earth's orbit. Which, for those who don't know, the monoliths in 2001 are implied to be this otherworldly or almost divine source of knowledge, a font of all wisdom from the divine, and it showed up on Earth and granted early humanoids the knowledge of fire and tools, and that I guess it also exists in the DKU, and Mr. Pants put his red Y fronts on there. And we talk about the genie, but maybe this also altered the fabric of reality itself and made the universe inherently bend towards the will and wants of Mr. Pants.
But what about that orange?
The orange is a Clockwork Orange reference, also by Stanley Kubrick. Yeah.
That's more clever than I'm used to in this game.
Everything's clever. Did I not mention Pluto Pants? Did I not mention Vamp Pants? This game is brilliant. It's Mr. Pants also was vitally important for establishing that Mr. Pants underwear comes in all variety of colors, while it's most identifiable for the red Y fronts that Mr. Pants himself wears and spreads around the world, nay, the solar system. There are also green Y fronts, there are blue Y fronts, there are orange Y fronts, and so on. There are multiple colors for your taste and preferences. So this is important for later references and nods to Mr. Pants throughout the DKU. So I'm glad they did this. It wasn't just rare cows that came in innumerable colors in this game. It was also the underpants themselves.
Yeah, and also Robo Pants is in very different colors here in this artwork compared to what I saw earlier. There's a green Robo and a blue, and I'm starting to think Rare doesn't understand consistency.
The rocket is also a different color in this final piece of artwork. It fluctuates, yeah.
UFO hat is different. Maybe Mr. Pants is an unreliable narrator.
Or maybe because he stuck his red Y fronts on that monolith, it just changes depending on his own recollection. Reality alters with every new day. Whenever he wakes up and misremembers something, then that reflects in the shifting timeline.
Can we also just quickly acknowledge that Mr. Pants, in addition to being good at everything, is specifically good at sports. There are lots of pictures of him playing sports.
Golf, baseball, football.
Baseball, basketball, golf, ice hockey are the ones I immediately saw.
Yeah. He doesn't wear any protective padding. He just goes out as is and masters it.
Maybe the Y-front is protective padding.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it could be built with extra cushioning to protect yourself, and that's what makes it such a quality product that everyone seeks out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is good enough to survive in space.
Yeah. It's not that he just clumsily decided not to wear a spacesuit. It's that he didn't need a spacesuit because the red Y fronts are all the protection you need against harmful cosmic radiation.
Why haven't we attempted this in real life? Do we not have anything this well made?
It's because in real life, the billionaires that are going to space are all actually idiots. So Viva Pinata, which of course followed It's Mr. Pants some year and a half later, was the next rare game.
Except on your podcast where it never gets talked about.
What was the next rare game to have a reference to Mr. Pants? Now, Mr. Pants did not physically appear in Viva Pinata. However, we do know he visited Pinata Island. You can get his bowler hat in the game, and the description reads, "Not just a legend on Pinata Island, but also one of Pinata Central's best customers due to his party-hard lifestyle. This hat symbolizes everything that is right in the world." My theories that Mr. Pants has bent the universe to his will either through Fez the Genie or through the 2001 monolith, it could be backed up by this description where it says, this hat symbolizes everything that is right in the world. The universe has been rewritten to reflect Mr. Pants as the arbiter of goodness and truth and light and decency.
That could be true. And it's probably my second most... It's this theory I subscribe to second most. But what I really think happened is Mr. Pants is the reincarnation of Jesus. And this is backing that up.
He's the second coming, is what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, and Toby was from the first coming.
Oh no. Of course, Viva Pinata had lots of references to several rare characters, and Pinata Island was just another hub in the Rare Archipelago that several have visited across many years. So I like that it makes sense that Mr. Pants went there, presumably when he made his expedition to the Rare Archipelago and met Banjo and met Birdie and Royston and what have you. This is also a stop he made, Pinata Island, and he gave them a bowler hat to remember him by, which is weird because he usually leaves red Y fronts. Maybe he was out by the time he got to Pinata Island, and so all he had left to give was his bowler hat. Like, he was completely nude at this point. He had given his last pair of red Y fronts off his body and exposed himself to the pinatas and weirdos who live there.
Is he even Mr. Pants if he isn't wearing his pants?
That's a philosophical question, isn't it? I would think that if he lost the red Y fronts, he would also lose the magic that seems to exude from him. It would be like Santa without his magic sack. It would just be like, what do you have to offer us now? Nothing. You're just a freak.
Maybe that's why Mr. Pants hasn't gotten a new game recently. He lost his pants, and he's still looking for him.
That would make a good rare RPG, like the starting point for a rare RPG.
Yeah, it's a shame he doesn't have like a factory to make more or anything.
Right. Well, he can't go home without his red Y fronts. They would deny him access. They would deny him entrance to Pantsland because they would think he would be inherently a fraud, an impersonator.
So, I know Everwild will eventually come out, but how about you delay it a few more decades and we do this instead?
Just reboot Everwild for the 7th time to star Mr. Pants.
There's a built-in fan base.
Weirdly enough, Mr. Pants has not been referenced yet in Sea of Thieves even. The last time he was referenced was Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. And then Rare just quit him cold turkey. And it's a little bit disconcerting. Granted, the website has gone through several corporate revisions and it's kind of removed all of Lee Loveday's personality, stripped it clean. So maybe the further away the website got from the eccentric, very, very unique point of view of Lee Loveday, the more irrelevance Mr. Pants slipped into. But yeah, Nuts and Bolts was kind of the last time he was referenced in a video game.
And the thing is, I hate the discourse that is Nuts and Bolts killed Banjo, because that's bullshit. Banjo has been in plenty of other things. He's an IDARB, I believe. But
yes,
Mr. Pants died here. This is the real loss of gaming.
Which might be apropos then that one of the references to Mr. Pants in Nuts and Bolts was via the Spirit of Pants hood ornament that you can get for your vehicle. Now, for those who don't know, the Spirit of Pants ornament is a reference to the Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament on Rolls-Royce cars, which is this flying, like, woman or like some sort of like fairy or angel. I don't really know. It's a spirit. It's ethereal.
Like from Smash Bros. One of those spirits, right?
The description for the Spirit of Pants ornament says, rubbish rare website mascot, now rubbish vehicle mascot. Not exactly flying lady on sophisticated cars. Which, this is the nastiest Rare has ever gotten towards Mr. Pants. It's night and day compared to that description in Viva Pinata, where it said this hat symbolizes everything that is right in the world. Here, it's rubbish and very dismissive, which I think is keeping with the general tone of Nuts and Bolts, which was very dispirited and kind of treated as this is going to be the last game Rare ever makes. They're going to shut us down after this.
It was funny, and it wasn't insulting everyone's childhood. Now shut up, everyone that says that.
It was funny. It was Rare being self-deprecating.
I loved it. Nuts and Bolts, for all its issues, has some great writing, I feel. And it's a very important game. Even if I said that Banjo Pilot was the last real game that anyone cared about. I take that back because Nuts and Bolts was great. I had Mr. Pants twice, which we'll get to, but also people kind of forget just what the industry was like in 2008.
Yes.
And this wasn't a dig at anyone's childhood, and I'm just saying that because no matter how many times I say it, people still assume it is. So I'll just clip this one bit of this one episode and just link it to everyone every time this happens.
Yeah, it was Rare going through an existential crisis and being very just down on themselves, their place in the industry, their failure to really catch fire for the better part of a decade.
Rare was always taking the piss.
Yes.
That's why Cranky Kong is so beloved.
Rare was always taking the piss, but with Nuts and Bolts, it felt like it was next level because it really did feel like they were trying to self-emulate in a blaze of glory and just being like, yeah, we suck. This is the end.
And they were right. They did suck.
Oh, no.
They did cameo around this time. Sorry, Chris.
Oh, jeez.
I think cameo's okay.
Cameos.
And I never
DKU.
played Viva Pinata.
Cameo's DKU, unlike Jet Force Gemini.
Yeah, and I've played Cameo unlike Jet Force Gemini.
So yes, the other reference to Mr. Pants occurred in the Logbox 720 world. There was an enormous game disc that was It's Mr. Pants. Apocryphal Logbox 720 ports or remake of It's Mr. Pants, and along the perimeter of the disc, it was written, our website mascot that somehow managed to get his own game. It's highly doubtful he'll get another.
There's still chance. We're in an era of 2000s nostalgia, so someone will realize that this game existed, and we'll get the sequel everyone wants. We had new Pokemon Snap. Maybe we'll get new It's Mr. Pants.
They clearly forgot about the second Mr. Pants game, It's Mr. Pants Mobile Edition, so I don't know what Rare was griping about here.
And that one's non-canon.
No, it's clearly the time that your contestant was invited back to It's Mr. Pants as sort of a Tournament of Champions type situation. It's like, oh my god, they're back, everyone. It was a rating stunt.
You go this far, but Jet Force, you just can't make work.
It's because I operate within the realm of logic and reason. Speaking of logic and reason, even though Nuts and Bolts was the last reference in a Rare game, Mr. Pants was alluded to in a game that had some Rare DNA in it via the founders of the studio. Yooka-Laylee in 2017 did seemingly have a few references to Mr. Pants. Now, given the nature of Playtonic not actually being affiliated with Rare and Microsoft, they couldn't come out and say, Mr. Pants, just like they couldn't come out and say, that's Royston in Dr. Puzz's Bowl. They had to get, a little bit evasive about it. But Yooka and Laylee on the rock, the giant boulder that they lounge on in Shipwreck Creek, just outside of the Batship Crazy, they've got a couple of magazines, right? One of them is Sonar Monthly, which, of course, Laylee would subscribe to, being a bat. Yooka's magazine is actually a catalog that is titled Pants and Why You Should Wear Them. And on the cover are several Y-front briefs. 1 green, 1 red, and 1 purple. They also fly a pair of the underpants as their flag on the batship Crazy from the mast. And I like the notion that Yooka is a subscriber to Mr. Pants' catalog. And it just vicariously lives through the fashion decrees of the great leader of Pantsland, the host of It's Mr. Pants.
Or maybe this is a bootleg.
A bootleg, like a rival. No, I like to think this is Mr. Pants' official publication, and that...
Why is it then? It would be called something like Mr. Pants' Pants, but instead it's just Pants.
Because Pants...
No reference to him.
Oh, well, again, we know there's no reference to him because Platonic can't literally say Mr. Pants, but...
Sounds like you're making real life excuses for what is a lore issue.
The lore reason, of course, is that Pants have become so linked to Mr. Pants.
Who's Link? He sounds like some guy but didn't get any hero coins.
You got me there. You got me there. No, you don't need to say Mr. Pants. You just say Pants, and everybody thinks of Mr. Pants. You know I'm right.
I don't understand why Platonic didn't go to Microsoft and spend all that Kickstarter money to get the Mr. Pants IP.
Maybe they did, and it didn't work out for them.
I wonder how much it actually... do you think Microsoft would sell the rights to Mr.
Pants? Well, we should try. We should try to actually poach Mr. Pants from them if they're not going to use them.
Yeah, I feel like you need to make that a Patreon goal.
Yeah. I would probably lose patrons. I'm probably going to lose patrons from this episode. Just doing this alone is going to annoy enough people at the end of the year that come New Year's Day, I'm going to lose like 30% of my patrons.
So yeah, subscribe on Patreon, and Hyle will buy the rights to Mr. Pants.
Yeah, okay, here's the deal. If I become eccentrically wealthy, and
you become eccentrically wealthy,
and I have all of my needs met, like, housing, food, stable income, I will see if I can buy Mr. Pants.
No, you spend money to make money. So you buy Mr. Pants to have a stable life.
I've been spending money to make money for years now. It doesn't always work out for you.
It'll work out eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure. I feel like you need to gamble more to make money on the gambling.
Right. I just need to, try out DraftKings or whatever. But the problem is the only sports I follow are Mr. Pants and the artwork you can unlock of him playing sports. So it's not really applicable to any real-world situations.
They need to add him to Mario sports games. I'm just thinking of that. In fact, why was he not in Connect Sports?
Why was he not in IDARB? Like, we had that rare, limited team.
He's not as important as Richard Nixon.
Oh, but if Mr. Pants was real... Oh my God, like, the world would be healed, right? All of the sins dating back to Watergate would just be washed away. Everything from our politics to our international affairs. You say he's Jesus. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to be that sacrilegious and piss off some of our audience.
Wow, it's the holiday season.
Well, if he is the Messiah returned to us... There are no wise men traveling from afar, for we have no calls on this episode, Freezer.
Okay, we'll make our own. Just give me a second. Hey, I'm Traveler of the Stars. You're looking beautiful, Hyle, as usual. Freezer, you're magnificent. I agree with everything you say about everything, including what is and isn't DKU. I was too young to play It's Mr. Pants, and... I don't really have a question, but have a lovely day as always. Well, thank you.
This has been a File 2 production.
¡Qué rico!